The mop bucket rolled across the floor on its own, stopping at my feet. The wheels made a soft rubber squeal against the tile, the kind of sound you'd expect if someone nudged it with their hip while carrying boxes. But the store was closed, the gates were down, and the only person scheduled for the late shift was me. I stood there holding the mop handle halfway through a ringing motion, water dripping slowly back into the yellow basin. For a moment I assumed I'd pushed it without realizing. The floor was still wet with disinfectant, the lemon smell sharp in the quiet air. Maybe the wheels had found a slope. I looked down the aisle, perfectly flat. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that faint electrical hum every big store has after hours. It always sounded louder once the customers were gone, like the building had lungs. I nudged the bucket lightly with my shoe. It rolled back a few inches. Normal enough. I dipped the mop again and pushed it across the tile. The fibers whispered along the floor, leaving darker streaks that slowly faded as the disinfectant spread. Behind me, the bucket moved again, just a few inches. Slow, careful. I turned around. The wheels stopped. The handle swayed slightly, the metal wringer creaking like something settling into place. "Okay," I muttered. I walked over and crouched down, inspecting the wheels. Nothing stuck in them. No stray plastic wrap or tape. The rubber was worn but intact. The floor was damp, though. I ran my hand over the tile. Smooth, slightly slick. Maybe it was just the water. I stood and pushed the bucket back to where it had been, lining it neatly beside the shelf. Then I returned to mopping. The store stretched out around me in quiet rows. Paper towels, canned soup, cleaning supplies. After closing, everything felt staged, like a photograph of a place instead of the place itself. My footsteps echoed faintly as I worked. Slosh, drag, slosh. Then, I froze. The bucket rolled again. Not toward the slope of the aisle. Toward me. It moved slowly, wheels turning in a steady rhythm until it stopped about 2 feet away. The metal wringer creaked softly, like a breath. I stared at it. "Very funny," I said, though there was no one there to hear it. The security gate at the front was locked. I checked it twice. Still, I walked the store anyway, just to be sure. My footsteps echoed down every aisle. The refrigerators hummed along the back wall. The overhead lights flickered once near the frozen section, briefly dimming before buzzing back to life. No customers. No coworkers. No one hiding. When I returned, the bucket was waiting exactly where I'd left it. I forced a laugh and went back to work. The mop slid across the tile again, leaving thin reflective streaks. That's when I noticed the pattern. At first it looked like uneven drying, some spots staying darker than others. But the marks weren't random. They curved. Thin lines of water traced faint shapes across the floor, like fingerprints pressed into glass. I crouched down. They weren't fingerprints. They were footprints. Small ones. Bare feet. Each damp print appeared just long enough to darken the tile before fading into the disinfectant sheen. And they were all facing the same direction. Toward the bucket. I felt something tighten behind my ribs. "Okay," I said softly, as if speaking might make the logic appear. Maybe the mop was dripping unevenly. Maybe I'd tracked water without realizing. But the prints kept forming. 1, 2, 3. Each one appearing a few inches closer to the bucket. Then stopping. The fluorescent lights flickered again. For a second, the entire aisle dimmed. And in the reflection of the wet floor, I saw something standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Just the empty aisle and the bucket. But when I looked down again, the reflection was still there. A small figure, standing directly beside the bucket. I stepped away quickly, heart thudding. The reflection vanished as the water dried. "Stop," I whispered to the empty store. The bucket moved. Slowly, deliberately. The wheels turned once, twice, and it rolled past me. Not toward the exit. Toward the back hallway. It stopped. Waiting. I stared at it for a long time. Then, without really deciding to, I followed. The wheels squeaked again, starting up the moment my footsteps resumed. The bucket rolled ahead of me, keeping a steady distance. 10 feet, maybe 12. Like it knew exactly how far to stay. The hallway lights flickered as we passed under them. The smell of disinfectant grew stronger here, mixing with something older. Damp cardboard, rust, old water. The storage door at the end of the hall loomed ahead. The bucket stopped in front of it. I hadn't opened that room in months. No one had. Corporate had sealed it after the accident. My chest tightened. "That's not funny," I said. The bucket's wheels turned once more. Nudged the door. The metal latch rattled softly. My hands felt cold as I stepped forward. I knew this door. I knew this hallway. And suddenly the smell of disinfectant felt stronger than it should have. Because I'd smelled it before. That night, the memory slipped in slowly. A spill. A child running through the aisle. My cart stacked with cleaning supplies. The bucket rolling loose after someone bumped it. I remembered shouting. The wheels squealing across the tile. The water spreading too fast across the floor. The child slipping. The sound his head made when it hit the tile. My stomach turned. "We called an ambulance," I whispered. But the bucket rolled again. Just a few inches. Closer to the door. The latch clicked open. The door drifted inward with a soft groan. Inside, the storage room lights flickered weakly, illuminating the bare concrete floor. And right in the center, a dark stain, shaped like a small body. Couldn't breathe. "We cleaned that," I said, but the bucket rolled into the room. The wheels stopped directly beside the stain, and the water inside the bucket rippled, slowly forming shapes across the surface. Letters, one by one, not written, spelled by the movement of the water itself. "Come." My throat tightened. The bucket wasn't looking at me. It was facing deeper into the room, toward the back wall. I followed its direction. That's when I noticed the faint outline of a door I'd never seen before, half hidden behind stacked shelves. The bucket rolled again, stopping just short of it. Waiting. And suddenly I understood something that made the cold spread through my bones. The bucket hadn't been moving toward me. It hadn't been trying to scare me. Slowly, the wheels turned again, guiding the way forward. It had been leading me here. The man asked for the key to the upper level, though the store had no stairs. He said it the way people ask for a restroom key, calm, polite, already assuming the answer would be yes. I blinked at him across the counter. "I'm sorry. The key," he repeated gently. "For the upper level." The store was quiet in the way late-night convenience stores always are. Refrigerators humming along the back wall, fluorescent lights buzzing faintly above the aisles. The smell of stale coffee and floor cleaner hung in the air. I glanced toward the ceiling without thinking. White acoustic tiles stretched overhead in a grid. Standard drop ceiling. Cheap aluminum frames. Nothing unusual. "No upstairs here," I said. He nodded thoughtfully, as if I just confirmed something interesting. "That's strange," he said. "There should be." He wasn't dressed oddly, just a dark coat, neat hair, maybe late 40s. The kind of customer who'd usually be asking for cigarettes or directions to the highway. Instead, he looked up at the ceiling again. His eyes moved slowly across the tiles, like he was reading them. "You hear it sometimes, don't you?" he asked. "Hear what?" "The movement." I opened my mouth to answer, but a sound interrupted. A faint shift above us, like something sliding across drywall. I froze. The man's expression didn't change. "There," he said quietly. The sound stopped. For a moment the store returned to its usual stillness. Buzzing lights, humming coolers. "You probably have raccoons or something," I said, though the words came out thin. "Raccoons don't pace," he replied. I didn't respond. He stepped closer to the counter and rested his hands on the laminate surface. "They built it above you," he continued casually. "Same layout, same aisles, same counter." My skin prickled. "What are you talking about?" "The upper level. There isn't one." He looked genuinely sympathetic. "They don't tell you," he said. "Not at first." The fluorescent lights flickered. Just once. A A quick dimming that made the store feel briefly deeper than it was. When the light stabilized again, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before. One of the ceiling tiles above aisle 3 wasn't aligned with the others. It sat slightly lower, maybe half an inch. I frowned. "Do you see it?" the man asked. I didn't answer. He tilted his head toward the misaligned tile. Sometimes they look down. The air in the store felt heavier suddenly, like pressure building before a storm. "I think you should leave," I said. The man didn't move. Instead he asked very calmly, "Where do you keep the spare keys?" "We don't have a key for something that doesn't exist." "You do," he said. "You just don't know what it opens yet." Another sound came from above us. A slow, deliberate creak. Not scratching. Not scurrying. A footstep. My stomach tightened. "Listen," I said, forcing a laugh. "There's no space up there. The roof's right above the ceiling." "Is it?" He looked around the store. "You close at midnight, correct?" "How do you know that?" "The upper level closes when you do." A chill crept along my arms. He stepped back from the counter and turned slowly, examining the aisles. The movement made something else noticeable. The lights over aisle 4 flickered faintly. Not randomly. 1, 2, 3. Then still. The man nodded as if recognizing a signal. "They're active tonight," he murmured. "Who?" He pointed upward. The sound came again. Another step. Then another. Directly above the counter. My heart began pounding. "That's impossible," I whispered. "Not impossible," he said gently. "Just adjacent." The word lingered in the air. Adjacent. Like two rooms sharing a wall. Or two versions of the same space occupying the same place. I swallowed and glanced up again. The misaligned tile above aisle 3 had shifted slightly. It sagged lower than before. Barely noticeable. But lower. "You see it now," the man said. I walked around the counter slowly, drawn toward it despite the tightness in my chest. The tile's edge cast a thin shadow on the fluorescent light beside it. And something moved within that shadow. Not clearly, just a dark shape sliding past. Like a reflection crossing glass. I stepped back. "No," I said. The man reached into his coat pocket. My muscles tensed. But he only pulled out a small brass key. He placed it gently on the counter. "I brought a copy," he said. "But the original should be here somewhere." I stared at the key. It looked old. Heavy. Not like the plastic-tagged keys we used for the freezer and bathroom. "What does it open?" I asked. "The access point." "There isn't one." "There will be." Another step sounded overhead. Closer this time. Directly above me. The ceiling tile above aisle 3 shifted again. A faint line appeared along its edge, like it was being pushed from above. The man leaned slightly closer. "Have you ever noticed the pressure change at night?" he asked. "Yes," I said before thinking. Sometimes the air in the store felt strange after midnight. Heavier, as if the building had sealed itself. "They're aligning," he said. "Who?" He looked at me. "The ones upstairs." A new sound spread across the ceiling. Multiple steps now, moving slowly through the grid above us. The lights flickered again, this time longer. When they stabilized, I saw something that made my throat close. The ceiling tiles were not perfectly square anymore. Several had shifted slightly out of alignment, as if something above them had pressed down. "They're close tonight," the man whispered. "Stop saying that. You work here every night," he continued. "They've been observing you." "Observing?" "The upper level records everything." My pulse hammered in my ears. "Why would they watch a convenience store?" He smiled faintly. "Because it's quiet." Another step overhead. Then another, right above the sagging tile. The man slid the brass key across the counter toward me. "You should find the original," he said. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I opened the drawer beneath the register. Receipts, rolls of coins, and something I'd never seen before. A small metal key, identical to his. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. I've worked here 2 years, I said hoarsely. That wasn't here before. They placed it tonight. Why? The man's eyes drifted upward. The ceiling tile above aisle 3 bowed slightly. Dust sifted down through the grid. Because they're ready. A long silence filled the store. Then, a deep thud echoed above us. The entire ceiling grid shuddered. The lights dimmed, and from above came a slow mechanical sound. Something unlocking. My breath caught. Wait, I said. The man was already stepping toward the door. You're leaving. He paused. You have the key now, he said. What am I supposed to do with it? He gave me a sympathetic look. Nothing. Another thud overhead. Louder. The ceiling tile dipped lower. A thin black gap opened along one side. Cold air flowed down through it. Then why give it to me? I asked. He opened the door and stepped outside into the night. Before it closed behind him, he said quietly, because the upper level only opens for employees. The door clicked shut. Silence filled the store again, except for the sound above me. The ceiling tile above aisle 3 shifted completely out of place. A dark square opened in the grid, and from within it, something began to descend.